Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Zone Star State podcast. I'm Matthew Brune. Joining me once again is Ishmael Johnson. And Ish, it is Thursday, November 14th, just in time for the high school football playoffs. But we got basketball to talk about. How are you?
I'm good. It was funny because we're so in the deep with basketball. I told you before I started recording that I forgot that it was signing day for basketball, and so I'm seeing all these this recruiting news coming down. We were talking about Kingston Flemings and Aaliyah Chavez and some Texas connections, and I was like, it just completely caught me off guard. I was like, oh right, today's signing day.
Yeah, it's a good class for Texas.
Yeah.
Obviously you have Aaliyah Chavez on the women's side, but you
Mhm.
have Isla McDowell, who's going to South
Yeah.
Carolina from Houston. I'm definitely forgetting some, but that's just top of my head. And then the men's side, I mean, what is this? Eight top 90 players.
Roughly, yeah.
That's
Fleming's being, I don't want to say unanimously, but more or less unanimously the number one.
him and Shelton Henderson both are
Yeah,
Fleming's out of San Antonio, Henderson out of Houston.
right. So yeah,
Oh,
it's a really good class on both sides for sure. By the way, Taylor Barnes was another one that
mm-hmm.
you think it's on the women's side, going to Cal, and off the top of my head, I think those are the top 100 out of the top or national top 50 or so for hoop girls, I believe.
Yeah, it's it's a good year. Obviously being from San Antonio, having Kingston Flemings, Brennan's been really good for
Yeah, him and
oh,
his sister. His sister's, I believe, a blossoming four-star as well. She was a sophomore last year, so it
yeah.
should be. They won't be the only Flemings coming out of Brennan.
Yeah, Brennan's got some dudes over there. Let's talk college basketball, though. We got
Yeah.
three big games that we want to get to here. Not a huge slate today as we continue to sift through the non-conference where some teams play people and some teams don't.
Yeah.
It's fine wherever you land on that spectrum, but
Sure, mhm.
either way,
Set your schedules. No,
yeah, you
nothing
can't
against
hide
you.
forever. Can't hide forever. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. Um, Speaking of getting got, North Texas
Mm.
men goes up to Minnesota and beats the Gophers 54-51. I watched all of this game.
Speaking of you can't hide, they tried to hide this one.
Big 10 plus for those who wanted to watch it. I had to let's just say do some illegal streaming
Yeah.
to get it, but 54-51 men. It was, first of all, it's North Texas' third straight win over a Big Ten team, which I
Mm.
just think is hilarious. They beat
Interesting.
Purdue.
Does that include the Purdue?
Yeah,
Okay.
Purdue in the NCAA tournament, Wisconsin in the NIT tournament
Wow,
on the
okay,
road.
yeah.
And or no, that was the NIT semifinal game
Yeah.
because Oklahoma State was on the road, and then Minnesota now on the road. So 3 straight for the Mean Green. And this team is awesome. I
Mm.
mean, they have picked up right where they left off last year and the year before, and they held Minnesota 14 points in the first half, and Minnesota went almost 12 minutes without scoring a field goal. Like, they had a
Wow.
couple of free throws here and there, but in the first half, they went 12 minutes without scoring a field goal, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. The ball pressure is there. They are on a string, and I can't understand how you get a group full of transfers,
Mhm.
just a completely new cast, right? All the starters are gone pretty much. Your only returners are Rondell Walker, Mulai Sissoko, and Matthew Stone. Everybody else new. And a lot of them are older players, which helps, but also these are guys that maybe haven't had to play defense at this level or, are stuck in their ways a little bit, you would think. No, they just step right in, and North Texas shuts down a Minnesota team that Minnesota's not a great team, but they're top 70 in KenPom, and they have Dawson Garcia, who was all Big Ten last year. And Garcia got 24, but they had nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. North Texas, I thought I was a little worried in the first half that they were only up 9. I
Mhm.
thought they could have expanded it, but yeah, just a incredible win from North Texas to really show that they're once again going to be contenders in the American.
Yeah, I think for me, and I was only able to see the kind of the condensed game because
Mhm.
like you mentioned, you had to go searching the depths of the dark web to find a link. But the thing that I did like, I didn't get as good of an impression of the defensive um,
Yeah, because
quality that
it's
they
it's
showed in
just
this game.
buckets on the
Yeah, but like what I am liking so far is that they're seemingly finding guys who are not afraid to take shots, right? And that's of course been the if you wanted to call even the NIT championship team, like if you wanted to find weaknesses of those teams that were great under Grant, it was the guys that everybody kind of knew who the alpha was, and it was like not everybody else was as confident with their shot outside of
yeah.
what was Hamlet or Tyler Perry or whatever. Um, Last year, I think we saw semblances of that a little bit, right? They maybe had a couple. It was kind of Edwards and Bugs a little bit. But this year, I think we're finding more because it's not just like okay, so like Jasper Floyd didn't have the best game, but like
Mhm.
I can see him as a creator, right? I
Yeah.
can see him as somebody who is looking for a shot. Obviously, Rondo Walker was their leading scorer, but like even guys like Aiden Wright, Jonathan Massey, like these guys are like they're not afraid to look for their shot and they're not hesitant with the ball. Whenever it's a roll opportunity or a lay-in opportunity for Sissoko. Sissoko's looking for a shot. Like, it's like they're confident when somebody is driving the lane and giving it to Sissoko. He's going right up with it. They're not afraid to take a lot of threes either. I believe they took 17 threes, they only made 5, but like they were taking them, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there is something to be said about just having that confidence in your shot and the confidence in the offense, because you're not just like there were times in the past couple of years where Tyler Perry is like a little bit off his game and everybody's like, okay, who's that
Yeah.
next guy? And all of a sudden everybody's eyes get kind of big because it's like, I don't want to take this shot.
Yeah, it's kind of what we talked about. I mentioned in the last podcast, but you're right. You have Floyd, you have Wright, you have Massey, and you have Giselle, who still hasn't found
Yeah,
his
he hasn't even gotten going yet. Yeah,
footing. But it's very clear that they like Latrell Giselle, and he's going to
yeah,
play a big role. But like you have 4 guards that just roll, and Rondo Walker, to your point, led them in scoring. Like he's not even like a score first guy, right? He
sure.
is a 6'6" like defender, rebounder type, and he still comes in and goes 5 of 8 from the field. Sissoko finishes a lot. Minnesota finished the game with only 16 points in the paint,
Mhm.
0 fast break points. I mean, 6 of 23 from 3, and they started the second half. Minnesota did, coming right back and cut it to 1, and North Texas. Again, you would expect a new team facing adversity for the first time to maybe fold, but
Yeah,
I mean, Ross Hodge at some point has to be put in this conversation of like one of the best coaches in Texas, because to do this year, like I said it before, it's
this
like
early into this year.
this early into this year. Last year, you still had Ruben, you still had Aaron, you had pieces that had been there.
Yeah.
This year, it's about as blank of a slate as you can get
Hmm.
in college basketball at this point. And to have them bought in and playing defense at this level is really impressive. I will say that the front court, I think, is pretty athletic too. Outside of Sissoko, I mean Sissoko included, but even outside of him, Grant Newell held his own. Brennan Laurent had that game-sealing dunk at the end, so like
Hmm.
he has the athleticism. So I'm really high on this team right now. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure going into the year. I don't know what we had them going in conference. I could probably pull it up right now, but at this point, I'm like, if they play like that, I don't know who beats them. I mean, Memphis at their peak, but it's
Yeah.
tough.
It's gonna be tough, and you're going to the game on Monday between McNeese, which is gonna be a great game. I think
Yeah,
a contrast of styles, but two of the top mid majors in the country. I think Ken Palm right now has them at 21-7 overall finishing, which again, obviously there's some like 2 possession games in there, so like that's still a realistic shot at a really good season. To put some emphasis on what I was mentioning earlier, so Ken Palm, of course, has their player stats page that kind of compiles like, who controls the ball a little bit more.
yeah,
I'm going to look at last year's team in particular. The NIT team had quite a bit of contributors, but I'm going to look at 2021, 2022, and then 2024. I'm going to skip the NIT year because I think that team kind of proved itself. So 2021, excuse me, the year that they made the tournament. Javion Hamlet, go-to guys as far as 28% or more contributions, right?
yeah,
They had him 28% of possessions used. Javion Hamlet's in that one
yeah,
category by himself, right? 2022, you go, it's Thomas Bell, right?
Yeah.
That was when Tyler Perry was coming off the bench, right? And so Thomas Bell was in there. 2023, I mentioned they won. They had three guys in there. It was Tyler Perry, Kai Huntsberry, Abu Usman, kind of like the three pillars. Last year, it was just Jason Edwards, right? This year, so far, through just 3 games, Jasper Floyd and Jonathan Massey. By the way, Rondell Walker, who was the leading scorer on this team, has had less than 12% possessions used this year.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like it goes to show that obviously it's early, but like there's no real, obviously Jasper Floyd is like the playmaker, but like there's no real everything hinges on this guy right now. And I think that's a good thing.
Even Floyd is only at 24 usage percentage, and
Yeah.
Massey, when Massey's on the court, he does shoot quite a bit.
Yeah.
But he's not a chucker, I don't
And
think.
I should mention like Aiden Wright, Latrell Jossel, and Brennan Lorian even 21, 22, and 23%.
Yeah.
Right. So they're all like right there into that.
Mhm.
Like Jossel, as he gets more playing time, may just punch into that top, or Aiden Wright as well. So it just goes to show like, oh my God, like every one of these guys is like comfortable having some involvement in the game.
If they beat McNeese, which is not going to be easy. McNeese, I watched them play Alabama, 8-point loss to Alabama. I think McNeese is going to be good. If they beat McNeese, they then have Oregon State, Northern Iowa, High Point. Like, this is one of the tougher non-conference schedules in Texas here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight teams that are in the top 140 of KenPom right now. And especially for a mid-major team, like, if you win those, if you can go 1, 2, 3, like if they go 3-1 in this stretch, their KenPom and net is going to just shoot up. Like, we could be looking at like a top 50 team going into the
conference. I was about to say they're already 65. They've already shot up quite a bit.
Yeah, they went up 9 spots after the win last night. So it's like if they go 3-1 in this stretch of McNeese, Oregon State, Northern Iowa, and High Point, which won't be easy. But if they go 3-1, that we're looking at like a top 50 team, and again, one of the favorites in this conference right now, because I'm looking at the American on KenPom. It is Memphis at 37, North Texas 65, and then you drop down to Wichita State and FAU in the 80s, and you go from there. So it's an interesting year. It's definitely, and the American in KenPom is the 8th highest rated conference above the West Coast Conference. By a pretty significant margin.
And we know how much Gonzaga and St. Mary's kind of prop that conference up by themselves.
So we could be looking, multiple bids from the AAC getting them back into.
I would love for that to happen. I haven't seen their. Obviously, we'll have to wait till we get closer to conference to see like what their non-conference resume looks like, because we'll have to see how obviously all the other teams turn out as well. But I would love for that to happen. At least 2. Like, there's always AAC is one of those conferences where it's like there are 2 tournament teams in there at the very least, right? It doesn't matter what their record is. We know there are at least 2 tournament teams every single year in that conference.
If the Mountain West gets 6, the AAC should get at least 2.
Yeah.
I was just looking through it. Our boy PJ Haggerty's over there balling out.
Oh, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. They always get a high key transfer, and this one's like actually paying off.
29 points and 29 points and 25 points for Haggerty in his first 2 games with Memphis. So
I hate it.
Can't let him leave. Can't let him leave. Okay. Next game I want to talk about is TCU and Texas State men's. Now they played on the women's side ish, but I don't want to talk about that game. We don't need to talk about that game. Y'all can go Google what the score of that game was.
Not safe for work.
But anyway, not safe for work. But TCU ends up beating Texas State by 5 in a game that I'm trying to decide if I feel better about Texas State or if I feel worse about TCU. Like, where do you start with
That's where I'm at too. 76-71 TCU on the road, by the way. That TCU, I should say. Texas State was on the road. And I'll say this. I'm going to choose to lean more impressed with Texas State because, as I mentioned before on previous episodes, I've heard rumblings from people who covered the team saying, like, I think this team's pretty fun. Like, it was like, it wasn't just this game that where I've been optimistic on this team, it was like, again, they've beaten teams that they should have beaten, McMurray and Eastern Michigan, but it was the way they handled those teams. Like Eastern Michigan is a team that last year they probably struggled with.
Yeah.
And I think that whether or not the on paper talent is there for this team, I think you have guys who are worth building around, like Caden Gums, we mentioned, but also you got guys like Dylan Dawson and Drew Drennan who've been there for a couple years. And if they just hit, the problem with Texas State is that they haven't hit on transfers, right? They haven't been able to hit on guys that you've brought in for 1 year, 2 years. And it seems like they have guys like that now. Like Tylen Pope had 17 at the game high. Josh Agaro had 14. So it's like, okay, that's why I'm very cautiously optimistic, because so far so good. But to put it back to your point, this is a TCU team we've also had questions about, because we thought this was a team that was playing kind of for the next couple years. We think they'll be pretty good, but a team that we're looking a lot more in February than what they are now.
Yeah. We've talked about the youth on TCU's team, but I mean, the old guys, the transfers play a lot still. Like
Yeah,
we're waiting for Isaiah Manning and Rashawn Aled and
yeah.
Micah Robinson, like these young guys to get on the court. They played like 6, 8. Alette played 17, so it's not like a David Punch played 19.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's been mostly the older guys here playing 30 plus minutes, and it's weird watching a completely new team. Obviously,
Yeah.
Noel Reynolds ends the game 17 points. I thought Trey White was my favorite player here. Again,
Mhm.
first time watching TCU in a full capacity.
Yeah.
16 points from him. Just a great athlete. Did a really good job getting to the rim, and went 2 of 3 from 3. So like Trey White, 6'6", is a guy that I'm looking at when I watch TCU now, and they
Mhm.
do feel like they complement each other.
Yeah.
I don't know what their like trait is though. Like the past couple years, it was their offensive rebounding. Remember, TCU was like offensive rebounding like crazy. Then
Mhm.
they had Mike Miles a couple years ago, and so you had like an identity. It's early,
Yep.
but I'm just wondering like where this team goes. Because I like these pieces. I like Collins, Reynolds, White, even Wenzel, and Ude, but I'm not sure what that starting five does exceptionally well and how it matches up in the Big 12.
Yeah. I think right now what I do like, because I agree, like they're not as obviously not as good as their offensive rebounding has been in the past. They've been okay at it. Let me see. I think they're 47th in the country right now. Again, better than average.
Yeah, they only got
But
60 against
we were
Texas
used to
State.
seeing them as like the best, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
yeah.
but I'll say this: so far, they're really lengthy on defense, and they're doing a lot more like active defensive work. Like I swear Texas State got blocked at the rim like 5 times yesterday. And so it felt like it feels like one of those teams that's just like smotheringly lengthy. And I'm wondering, you know, is that here's why I'm interested in the rest of the season playing out, is because right now that's showing itself in blocks and steals. But like, are they lengthy enough just to be good defensive team, right? Like
Yeah.
Houston is a good lengthy defensive team because you can't get around them. Is TCU that, or are they more of the we're lengthy so we can just like the Serge Ibaka thing, where it's just like you're just so long that you're just going to reach it and block anything. That's what I'm kind of waiting to see right now. It's only a couple games in. They've played teams that I think they've been fairly bigger than, so like maybe it's just been a size advantage thing, but we'll see.
Well, they're definitely bigger than Texas State. That's the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
thing for Texas State is
Oh yeah.
they're not big. I was actually kind of impressed they even got to fit like close to 50% from
Yeah. No,
twos.
Texas State's tallest players like 6'7". Like they're not a big team at all.
Yeah, no. So that's from a TCU perspective.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
I think it's good they won the game. Texas
Mhm.
State was able to come back. Texas State is up to 132 in Ken Palm. I did not know they were that high.
They're not, like I said, so far so good. I'm being very cautiously optimistic about this team. I don't know who they have next. I think
ACU on the road.
okay. 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 I'm
Better win
interested in
that
that.
game.
If you take it, so that looks like they got ACU and then Rice in December, which are very good tests. Very good tests. So I'm
Well,
very interested to see.
Bradley on the 21st.
And Bradley, oh,
Top
yeah.
100 team.
Okay. Yeah. No, we'll know what this Texas State team is by the end of non-conference.
That would
Um,
be one of the
TCU has Michigan coming up, so we'll definitely know what they're about.
yeah. TCU is going to take a few watches to figure it out, I think, for me.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like Michigan and Santa Clara, Xavier, Vanderbilt. Like it's going to take me till December to figure out if I like this team or not.
Yeah.
But we'll see. All right, the last big game I want to talk about is Stephen F. Austin against Abilene Christian women's basketball here. They used to be in the same conference.
Yep.
Now they're not. So that makes I'm glad they kept this game going though, because it's a fun one. Every time they play, it is very, very fun. SFA ends up winning 68-65. Tie game in the final few minutes. Van Sickle hits a 3 late. I was able to go and watch that. So that's like Van Sickle 4 or 5 from threes, from 3 for SFA. But I was really fascinated by watching between her and then for Abilene Christian, Meredith Mays as a big in the game with 20 points, 13 rebounds, and they were just feeding her 8 of 12 from the field. So I want to give a shout out to those. Those are the 2 best players on the court.
Yeah, I feel like this game may go differently if Peyton Hull's not ice cold from the floor. I think she went. What does she go? 0 of 6 from 2, and then 2 of 8 from 3. They shot 6 of 31 from 3. So like I don't know if it was. I'll give some credit to SFA for their defense on the perimeter, but I do wonder if like how different this game is if Peyton Hull's a little bit more on her game to give Meredith Mason back.
Bella Earl too. Bella Earl only 1 of 7 from 3. So like those are players we expect to be, at least in the 30s percent.
Sure. But with that being said, like you mentioned, SFA is a team that's also kind of rebuilding with a lot of new players. And we know that Leonard's a good coach from what he showed last year, coaching under Mark Kellogg all those years. But we were still like, we just kind of we gave them the benefit of the doubt because they're SFA and because Leonard's been a part of that program, but we still didn't know, right? We were still like, is this the year where they kind of fall more into the pack of what, the mid-majors in the state are? But not really, because I thought ACU would be that team that would overtake them potentially.
Yeah, me too. I could probably pull up our record predictions, but I mean, I know it's different because SFA is in the Southland, but I mean,
sure.
Yeah, again, in theory, this game being in Abilene, like I would have favored Abilene Christian going into the game. So for SFA to get this win on the road, and Abilene Christian came out, they were up 20-12 at the end of the first quarter. They were up 10 going to halftime, and SFA just immediately comes back, and that's a sign of a good program, which we know they are. So entertaining game, and definitely one that I think holds a lot of weight when evaluating these 2 teams because we view them on a similar tier year in, year out. So it's like SFA will be competing in the Southland with Lamar and Southeastern and Corpus Christi. They could very well win it at this point. Like this is a benchmark win for SFA still.
Right.
Abilene Christian, I still think they're going to be fine. But going into the year, we had them at like 9 and 7 or so in conference anyways. I don't think that really changes. So that's it. I'm sick as a dog out here, so I'm going to bed. Actually, I just took Dayquil, so I better go do something.
I was about to say you're gonna be awake. What do you mean?
But
I'll play this. We got some interesting games this weekend. I'm just looking at the women's side real quick. So I think the big marquee one's gonna be on Sunday. It's gonna be NC State at TCU. On the women's side, which is going to be very, very good. We'll see exactly how good this TCU team is so far. But for all our mid-major fans out there, can I interest you in Houston at Rice on the women's side? Yeah. There's a smile on your face. Can I interest you in A&M at West Virginia? In real hoop heads, can I introduce you in UNT at ACU?
There you go. Now we're talking.
Yeah, so then that's the real one. UNT at ACU, but NC State at TCU, legitimately excited about. UNT at what I mentioned, ACU, really excited about, genuinely so. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have Houston at Rice on though.
Rice better win that game.
I was about to say, are we in like disappointing loss for Rice territory?
Yeah, that's where we're at. It's no longer like pat on the back loss here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then West Virginia is going to beat the brakes off A&M. Just
They are so the
roll
A&M
them.
is so happy they got that UTSA win.
Yes.
Because that
Yes,
could have
they
been
are.
bad.
Yes, they are. I know on the women's side, Texas beat Lamar by 35, which isn't a terrible result.
Yeah.
35 is probably about, if I had to like guess a spread going into the game, I'd say around 30 or so.
Right.
But yeah, Texas State women end up losing by like 60. So
One,
chalk it up to
excuse me,
TCU.
one on the men's side to watch on Saturday. This Saturday? What's today? Sunday. Mid-major. Sam Houston at Lamar on the men's side. Very fascinated by that one. Lamar took a bit of a beating earlier this year, I believe, against A&M. You know, they were kind of like a get-right game. But two teams that we kind of expect to be contenders in their conference. Sam Houston put the beat down on Tarleton. I still like this Lamar team as a contender, so in their conference in the Southland. So we'll see. That'll be kind of like a good measuring block for both those teams.
Yeah, and a game we didn't cover, Baylor men's beat Sam Houston State.
Yeah, that was their get-right game.
104-67. That was definitely their get-right game. So we'll see. Lamar Wilkerson still 7-15 from the field to 5-12 from 3.
Hey,
My fantasy draft player. I think he's my starting 3. So
nice.
shout out to him. But I think it was a good game for Edgecombe specifically. 6 of 9 from the field, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals. Yeah, he can just kind of do that sometimes. So really,
they've shot up 10 points in 10 rankings in KenPom already since the Arkansas and Sam Houston game. So
nice.
people are thinking it's more about Gonzaga probably just being that good.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. We'll get to see Baylor play St. John's on November 21st. And then UConn on the 4th, December 4th.
Yeah.
So plenty of games to talk about. Yeah, sorry, I got to get out of here, but
No, it's all good.
Everything is breaking down in my body right now. So, so yeah, thank y'all for joining us. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you have not already. Yeah, we'll be back. Tune into football this weekend, but we got plenty of basketball on tab as well. So, yeah, for Ishmael Johnson, I'm Matthew Brune. We will talk to y'all later.